Hey, what's up everyone? Kilryan here. I just wanted to do a quick video about ninjas. Ninja's the new class to TERA, and seeing as how I got a level 65 one on the first day, I figured it would be a good idea to show y'all some of the skills that a ninja has, as well as some of the basic combos you should be considering. First of all, we'll go through each individual skill that the ninja has, and I'll talk about if it staggers, if it's a main damage ability, a bunch of things like that. So, of course, you always have your auto attack. That is your left click on the ninja. The first auto attack is a stagger. It's a fairly fast attack as well, and it can be used in conjunction with other stagger skills, so you can stagger, stagger, stagger. It's pretty solid. First up, we're going to go over decoy. What decoy is it's one of your mobility skills which lets you teleport behind your target within 15 meters and attack it. It actually does quite a bit of damage. And another cool thing is that this little tree block here is actually a targetable item as well. So this means it can absorb certain hits, like let's say an archer's trying to shoot you, but it's not a pin arrow. It can actually take the shot for you. Next up is going to be your double cut. This is a very quick attack, and it sets up for a lot of your abilities. The first hit on it is a stagger, so typically what I do is I'll auto attack stagger once and then go for a double cut stagger. Next up is going to be your Skyfall. This is going to be one of your biggest or most common damaging skills as a ninja. Does quite a bit of damage and sets you up as well, or sets up for further damage later. A lot of ninja skills synchronize together really well. Like you see here, the glyph of double cut increases the damage done by Skyfall for a few seconds. So for 5 seconds, your Skyfall is dealing more damage. Skyfall. There's no staggers on it, so keep that in mind. It is just standard damage. Now with Skyfall, that then will increase your Circle of Steel ability for 5 seconds by 30%. Circle of Steel is one of the harder damaging abilities that a ninja has. And so here it is. Slice. So a quick knock up or / knock down slice, and then a heavy slice at the end. The initial hit is a knockdown, so it's one way that you can force retaliate out of your opponent. And then the last bit is just a hard damage hit. So typically, you go double cut, Skyfall into into Circle of Steel. The next ability that I like to talk about is 1000 cuts. This is a very unique ability for ninjas because it's a long animation, but it's in a total iframe since you start casting it. So the moment your hands go up, you'll fly or go towards a direction which is supported through like auto lock. So if you're like off to the side or if they're dashing, it will kind of follow to them and do the 1000 cuts. This hits really hard over the course of all the hits, or I would say about 50% of its damage, though, is from that final strike, and in each slice is also an individual stagger. But the last hit is kind of hard to hit if they're spamming their iframe or their jump back or whatever it may be. All right, so typically what you'll see is something along the lines of double cut into Skyfall, Circle of Steel, and then you can go in with 1000 cuts. You'll see that in PvE. However, I've heard some people don't use 1000 cuts in PvE at all. They more so just rotate between double cut, Skyfall, Circle of Steel, and decoy jutsu, as well as their auto attacks. Next up, I'd like to talk about Jagged Path. Jagged Path is your main mobility skill, much like Charging Slash or Charging Lunge or whatever it may be, but it dashes to your opponent and does follow. The initial strike on it is a stagger as well. So a lot of times what you want to do, instead of using decoy to gap close, unless you're doing PvE where you're just trying to get behind the boss, you want to use your jagged path in comparison. So the 3 staggers that you have as a ninja, you have your jagged path, you have your first strike of double cut, and you have your auto attack, as well as staggers coming from 1,000 cuts. All right, next let's go into a couple of their CC abilities outside of stagger. First, we'll talk about impact bomb. You drop a bomb onto the ground and leap backwards, knocking your enemy up. Now, this is strong because whenever an enemy is knocked up, it's considered essentially a knockdown. That means that they'll probably blow their retail, because what you do is you impact bomb into a skill called Leaves of the Wind. That's this skill right here, where it throws kunai out and does a decent bit of damage because you can spec for it to deal more damage to targets suspended in the air. Whenever you are hitting them while they're in the air, it also continues to juggle them in the air while also being a guaranteed crit damage. It's pretty strong of a skill and can deal quite a bit of damage if you can force your opponent's retail out before getting an impact and then Leaves of the Wind combo. Now, your next skill is probably your most important setup skill as a I keep wanting to say assassin. I don't know why. As a ninja is Blade Storm. Blade Storm throws out a giant shuriken that stands in place as well as carries mobs with it. Sadly, these are kind of low level, but let's say I'm right next to this hyena, right? And then I throw my shuriken out. It will carry him with the shuriken into the final resting place. Now, while this is happening, the player is constantly getting staggered and pulled in to the center of it. Typically, if the player has low ping, about 2/3 of the way through the animation or the duration of your Blade Storm, they are able to backstep out. So you want to capitalize whenever you initially get your catch. A lot of ninjas will use Blade Storm and then go straight into 1,000 cuts to basically pull off the full 1,000 cuts damage on them. However, there's other things that you can do that are a little bit more proficient, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. All right. Let's see. Next up, another one of the range skills that comes from or for ninja, which isn't a very useful skill, is going to be called Burning Heart. You get this at a fairly low level. It doesn't stagger or anything, and it does take chi to utilize it. I gain chi by using attunement, which just instantly grants about half chi. Burning Heart can be casted multiple times with the same damage through the entirety of it, and the same chi cost being 100 for each cast. However, the standard cooldown is 2 seconds, but for each chi or each fireball that you shoot out, it increases the cooldown once you finish casting it by 1 second. So it can be a really short cooldown if you just throw like one out for a quick snipe or something, or it can be a long cooldown if you like sit there spamming it. However, you really don't use that skill unless you're absolutely out of everything, or you can't be next to the mob. A lot of people believe ninjas were more of a mid-range fighter like Reapers were. However, they're definitely way more of a high mobility melee class. Alright. Next up, let's talk about Smoke Bomb. This is their level 65 ability, which is very strong actually. Smoke Bomb will drop this circle of effect right here, and it lasts for about 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds. While you are in that circle, nothing can hit you. I think healers can heal you, or friendly members can heal you, but nothing can hit you if you have that circle around you. And this also applies to teammates, so you can use it as a saving mechanic in PvP. I'm not exactly sure how much stuff you can iframe with Smoke Bomb and PvE, because I haven't done too much with my ninja. Next up is Death Blossom, one of your fairly long cooldowns, which does a decent bit of damage, but also is another one of your knockdowns. This throws out shuriken all around you and then pulls them back in. The outward damage or the outward go is pretty much just damage, and then the inward pull in is a knockdown. It's a knockdown as well as a pull to the center. So this is one thing this is one heavy or really good catching tool after you forced out a retowel. So let's say you did an impact bomb, you got a little bit of damage with your falling leaves of the wind. That forces their retowel out, right? So at this point, you then can go in for a stagger with your Jagged Coast, auto attack, stagger them one time, and then go for your Death Blossom, which will then knock them down. At this point, it essentially sets you up for a lot of damage or a high damage combo, because you still might even have your Circle of Steel for a knockdown, and then pretty much all of your other damage abilities available. This mainly being something like Bladestorm. Alright, or it's not, Bladestorm's not heavy damage, but it holds them in place so you can set up a ton of damage. Next up is your Chakra Thrust. Chakra Thrust, it's basically like Combative Strike, except it stuns, and it has the fucking worst hitbox I've ever seen in the world. So, it's a frontal strike, about a 12-second cooldown, that stuns for 3 seconds. It stuns for 3 seconds. In PvP, obviously, it's going to be reduced because people do use stun duration reduction. And then lastly, it's going to be your ultimate skill. Your ultimate skill is called Fire Avalanche. This is actually not too crazy of a skill. Or at least from what I've seen, maybe because none of us fucking ninjas can actually aim the skill. So, what it is with Chi, you roll up in like a fireball and then fly towards your target. Dang, I wish I could get more Chi. But this can be used 3 times in a row. And the thing about this is that each hit is a knockdown. Each roll is a knockdown. And then lastly, each time you use the skill, it actually doubles the damage. Or not doubles, but it escalates the damage. So you can see the base damage being 8,000 on the first use, 12,000 on the second use, and 20,000 on the third use. If you can actually pull off and land all 3 hits of this, it does a shit ton of damage. You just have to, it's really hard to land, and the animation's kind of wonky. Because once you use it, if you like, if they like slightly are in like on this direction, and then you're like, you just barely miss it, you'll literally just fucking fireball cyclone like past them. And then you'll try and use it again, and then even then it's like a awkward, it's an awkward animation lock. And then the last skill we're going to talk about is Focus. Focus is a really unique mechanic. It's basically just standard. It's 5% damage for the ninja. Always have this on. It's 5% damage while costing 20 mana a second, which is literally nothing, essentially. Now, what this also has, this mechanic fixed into Focus, is something called Intense Focus. You gain an additional 1% damage every 5 seconds you do not take damage. I think that this is a really cool idea, because what it allows you to do, it basically allows you to, the better you play, the more constant damage output that you're going to be dealing. If you have this stacked up to 10 times, it caps out at 10 times, while also having the standard 5%, you're dealing 15% more damage than you would be otherwise, just by properly avoiding. Keep in mind, you do have to properly avoid everything, and obviously there are some bosses which are guaranteed to deal damage on you, which is kind of unfortunate. But regardless, whenever you have this on, the more you dodge, the more damage you're dealing. And I like that concept. It actually rewards dodging outside of the thought of just making your healer's life less shitty. And then your bread and butter in terms of iframes, your roll skill, your standard right click. You have 2 rolls on a fairly short cooldown, 5-second cooldown to begin with. You can roll a second time within 3 seconds. However, one thing to note about it, and the cooldown does start as pretty much as you use it the first time. You can get a glyph for it that'll also reduce the cooldown by another 50%. Why did my TERA just go away? Hello? Hello, game? Properties, TERA? Okay. Let's just do this then. Or is that not working? Okay. Anyways, that's all the major skills of the ninja. Hopefully, y'all found it informational. I'll do some combo-oriented stuff later. I just wanted to do a skill showcase, and explain what staggers, what doesn't, what iframes, what does, does and doesn't. All right, thanks for watching. Catch y'all next time.